Hey everybody, welcome to the French Kiss Life podcast, where we explore what it means to live artfully and well. My name is Tanya Lee. I have been a certified master life coach for going on a decade now, which is crazy. Time really is flying by. And I'm also the creator of the Chic Savvy Immersion program, which is all about ridding your life of the excess, living your life in your own unique style, and creating the know-how to create a life that you love. And one of my favorite things about what I do is the incredible women that I get to meet and work with. And today I have a special treat for you. I'm actually bringing on a member of the French Kiss Life community to share her experience. I always tell my students, I'm like, the craziest thing is you all inspire me just as much as you say I inspire you. And this woman is definitely no exception. This is Marisa Bishop, and I'm going to pull up Marisa's beautiful bio, because this is why we love each other, because we have so much in common. But Marisa is passionate about laughing as much as possible, and we definitely do a lot of that together. Dark chocolate, red lipstick, and having great adventures such as skydiving and Paris. And mostly she loves helping professionals and entrepreneurs go from being overwhelmed and way too busy to having time to enjoy their lives. And you can find out more about Marisa at Mimi Bishop, and that's MIMI Bishop.com. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you
to the
so
podcast.
Much. Thank you. Thank you. It's so thrilling to be here because you have inspired me for so long. And I never miss a podcast. I never miss a blog post. I don't miss anything that you do.
Oh, so. Thank you. And I've been keeping tabs on you as well. It's so funny. I was looking back and you have been, well, I know you were part of Slim Chic and Savvy back in 2014, which is crazy. Like that's going on 5 years.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about you before we started the interview. And I wrote an article back in 2012 called How a Lady of Leisure Hustles. And I coined the phrase leisurely hustling. And when I think about that phrase, you embody it to a T.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, because you're such an incredible example of what it is to have both ambition and enjoy your life. And I know that's something that a lot of women struggle with. So I'm really curious to hear from you. How do you leisurely hustle?
That's a great question. It wasn't always that way for me. I was someone that worked tons of hours, and I commuted into the city almost 2 hours each way into New York City for a long time. And even when I started to shift that a little bit and have a sense that maybe I wanted to do something different, it was still got to get it done, got to get done. I brought that kind of energy to it. I was always the person that looked towards the goal. It was always the destination. When I get there, I'll be happy, all of that kind of thing.
Isn't that how it works?
Not at all. And so it's funny because when you say leisurely hustle, that's something that you really taught me, because that's one of the main principles that we talk about, that it's not the destination, it's you could bring whatever you want into your life now. And I know that you're a fan of talking about the middleman, right? Yeah. And you can just eliminate the middleman and have whatever you want now. And that's really how I started to get my start with hustling, but more at that leisurely pace.
Yeah. Well, thank you for mentioning the middleman. And for those of you listening or watching, the middleman is basically that thing that we put in the middle in order to create a feeling. So it's that statement of, when I lose weight, then I'll feel sexy, or when I have more money, then I'll feel happy. What was your middleman? I'm really curious.
My middleman was when I have my own business. When I have my own business, I'll be happy. When I'm no longer working in corporate, I'll be happy. And I was working on that side business for such a long time, getting up really early in the morning and doing it, and always thinking, well, once I get there, then I'll be happy. And what you taught me was that I should enjoy the process. And I started to look at the corporate job with gratitude, right? And so, like, I would go to work and I would really dress up every day. And I would really enjoy, I was very lucky that I worked with a wonderful group of people that I still keep in touch with, very close group, and I loved. And we would laugh every single day. We would, and this is something I started to do after working with you. Every Monday, I would stop at the florist on the way to work and I would get myself a bouquet of flowers. And then it became a thing. Like, people would stop by my office on Monday mornings and they were like, "What kind of flowers do you have today?" But I started to bring that energy into my corporate environment, and I started to enjoy the process, and it really changed things for me. And I do believe that that mindset and that energy is what then allowed the circumstances to kind of unfold so that I could make the jump.
Yeah, because now you have your own business.
I do. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
find yourself ever thinking, when I get to this certain level in my business, then I'll be happy, or then I'll feel secure?
Not as much anymore, because I know that the lesson,
Yeah.
I think that and it's interesting also, I think at every level there's always that sense of fear, right? That you need to
Mhm.
work through, and also understanding the concept, like, this never occurred to me, that you always want to be uncomfortable. Like, let's get, and I think you just wrote a blog post about this, or you did a podcast about it. Get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because that's where the magic is and that's where the growth happens. And you taught me that. And so it's not about, like, okay, when I get to this level, I can relax and I won't feel that discomfort. It will
Yeah.
always be there. And
Yeah,
it's
because you always want to grow, right?
right.
I feel like we are similar souls in that we always want to evolve and have big goals in front of us.
That's
And
right.
it requires that we feel discomfort, and yet so many people don't want to feel that. But when you get comfortable with the discomfort, then I think there's nothing that you won't go out there and try to create for yourself. And
That's exactly true.
you're proof of that.
And thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it comes through, like, sometimes even with weight loss, right? We don't like the discomfort of feeling hungry, or we don't like the discomfort of running. I was thinking about you yesterday morning because I'm training for a 5K, which I haven't done in
Yay.
a long time. I've done them and now I'm starting to do them again. And I'm running, and I was actually listening to your podcast, and you were talking about um it's one thing to take classes, but then it's another thing to apply it and do the work. And the work doesn't always feel good, but that's where the results come from.
Yeah.
And it's being so, here I am running. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I was thinking to myself, but I'm doing the work. Like, this is the hard part, and it's okay. And you feel awesome when it's done.
Yeah, that's
So,
the great
yeah,
thing.
the great
I
thing.
had this experience this morning because this is the first time I've ever interviewed someone on the podcast, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
And I love to talk. You've been around me. I can talk all day, small groups, but I was thinking, like, right before we got on the podcast, I was like feeling nervous. And I realized it's only because I've never done this before.
Mhm.
And I realized, and you know this too, the more you do something, it just becomes comfortable. Like Oprah, for
Yeah.
example, when she interviews people now, it's probably no big deal. But
Right.
anytime we're doing something for the first time, we have to expect that it's going to be uncomfortable. And I feel like that is what we have to pay in order to create our dreams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think it's important for people to just push themselves just a little bit until, into that discomfort, and do it a couple of times and then try again,
Yeah.
and grow a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. It's just a
Mhm.
teeny step,
Yeah.
and being okay with it. But that whole concept of, I always just thought, if something felt uncomfortable, this must not be good, or it's the wrong thing, or I'm just not going to go that direction. And now I realize, ooh, this is something I need to try out,
Yeah. You need to walk towards it.
That's right.
So true. And
Exactly.
here's the crazy thing. No one has ever taught us to feel our emotions.
Hmm.
And I tell clients all of the time, I'm like, the worst thing that can happen is a feeling. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't eat the cookie, the worst thing that can happen is a feeling of maybe deprivation in the moment.
Right.
And a feeling is simply energy moving around your body. So if you get really good at feeling that and not
Mhm.
reacting to it or avoiding it, again, think about all of the things that you will create, all of the things that you will do. And
Yes.
it's uncomfortable. And no one ever tells us that. Like
No,
you, I used to think, oh, if it's uncomfortable, I need to stay far away.
that's right. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even want to consider that. The other thing that you taught me is resistance is persistence, or no,
What
what
you
is
resist persists. Yeah.
right. So, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, like, and so you put all this energy in, your mind is on what you don't want to do, and it stays there.
Yeah.
But when you start to think about, just kind of walking through it,
Hmm.
shift.
Yeah.
All of these concepts, it never occurred to me until we started working together.
Yeah.
And so, after Slim Chic and Savvy, I was able to really bring these ideas into my day to day, and it really just shifted my perspective on everything.
Hmm.
And it just makes for something that it's just a different experience when you wake up every morning, because
So
you
much more fun, right?
so much.
I was telling a client the other day, I said, it's really interesting. The more I'm willing to feel sadness or disappointment or fear, the happier I've become. I
Mhm.
still have all of those things. Like I still have doubt. I still have fear. I'm just not afraid of it. And I realize now, looking back, it was my fear and my resistance of those emotions that made me so anxious and unhappy. So
Yes.
thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. And now, like, when something comes up, I'm like, oh, this is just disappointment.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
can
can
do
handle this.
disappointment,
Yeah, like, I've got disappointment nailed.
right? I can totally do rejection. Done it many times, right? So, one of the things that I often hear women say is, Tanya, I get what you talk about intellectually.
Mhm.
They can get the concepts, but it's when you start practicing them that you actually experience the results of it. And
Mhm.
so I'm really curious to hear from you how you went from knowing things intellectually to practicing them. What was that shift for you?
That's a great question. I think being really mindful um, of what things would look like. And so, an example of that is when we would talk about, okay, well, this is where you are today.
Yeah.
What does the Marisa that from 5 years, like the perfect Marisa look like? And so you can get a picture of that really clear.
Yeah.
And then you start to say, okay, and well, what can you do right now in this minute to start to embody that? And it's not necessarily the stuff, right, where you're living or what you're driving or anything, what you're wearing, anything like that. It's what you're feeling. And so maybe that's confidence, or maybe it's laughter, or any of those things. There is no reason why I couldn't start with that in the second.
Yeah.
And, that's what starts to shift. That's
And
where
have
that
you, and I
begins.
noticed you said earlier, as you were started to embody the Marisa, your ideal self,
Mhm.
right? The,
Right.
the self that your 9-year-old self is going to be
Yeah,
celebrating one day, right? Um,
absolutely.
you had said that your outer world began to shift as well. Can you give some examples of what has changed in your outer world? And when I say outer world, we talk about in Slim Chic and Savvy, your inner world is basically comprised of your thoughts and your feelings. And then your outer world is everything else. It's your weight, it's your home, it's your job, it's your relationships, it's everything outside of you. So, how has your outer world changed?
Yeah, well, I took Slim Chic and Savvy at such an important part of my life because my husband and I had just moved. We just sold our house and we moved into a new community. And I wasn't planning on doing the program. And I remember it was almost like one of those points where it was like, 2 hours left to sign up. And I was in a yoga class, and I got this, like, you've got to go home and sign up for this course. And I did right away. And so what happened was, I feel like I've really embraced the community that I live in. That's number one. I've made so many wonderful friends in our town. Um, it just feels like it's just a natural fit. And so that's one big way things started to shift. I was able to start traveling. I've been to Europe a couple of times. I went to Paris with you.
Yeah.
Things there. Even just the way I would show up, this whole idea of not needing as much stuff,
Mhm.
but the things that I had just they feel like they're very important to me or special to me, and they reflect who I am. So I think it's a lot more, the outer starts to reflect who you are in the inner.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about a lot are, what are your values, right?
Mhm.
And so one of mine is, I have three. I have beauty, which means make everything that I touch, I want it to be beautiful. If I wrap a gift, let it be beautiful. If I have flowers, like it down to the details, doesn't have to be anything crazy. Another value is joy. So that goes back to laughing at, a sense of humor. To me, my husband is probably one of the funniest people I know.
Oh my God.
Know him.
I love your husband. We were talking about before we started the interview, I'm obsessed with Risa and her husband's Facebook Lives because
Yeah,
it's like a reality show and
it
you
is a
never know what's going to
reality.
come out of his mouth, which is
No, and
amazing.
I'm dying. I'm dying, but he is so funny. He really is. He's probably one of the funniest people ever. So, or even in the hardest times, like just laugh. Like it is
Yeah.
just, you have to laugh. And then the third thing is simplicity. And so bringing all of that into my inner world, really, like, it starts to reflect outside as well. And
Mhm.
so it's the people that I spend time with, and the people I've met through your community who are now close friends, and they just aligned with more of what I was feeling. And
Yeah.
it's a good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's really interesting as you're talking. I realize one of the things that women struggle with is they begin to embody their ideal self. And if their external world doesn't start changing immediately, they give up and they go back to their old way of being. And the best example I can use is with weight loss. Like a woman will start to embody her naturally slim and healthiest self. But if the scale doesn't start to move immediately,
Right.
she gets frustrated, she gets
Yeah.
disappointed, and she reverts back to that old state of being. And so
Mhm.
part of the process and the practice for me has been valuing how I feel more than what's happening outside of me.
Mhm.
And as I've embodied that more and more, things do begin to change. So
Right.
for any woman who hears what you're saying and they're thinking, yeah, I want that, I want to embody, but I'm not seeing results, what kind of encouragement would you offer them?
Oh, I would say never give up, and never underestimate what's really happening inside, and how it is impacting the outside, even though it looks like things may not be shifting as quickly as you want them to.
Yeah.
Things shift at the right time, and they really will. Even though it feels like, I remember going to work every day thinking, like, when is this going to happen? I have flowers on my desk, I'm being grateful, like, when is this happening? But, you know, you can't rush it. And then eventually something happens, something that you may not have ever thought about. And then it leads to even greater things. So
Yeah.
it's just having patience with the process, and knowing that it's a commitment,
Mhm.
it's a commitment to really living by those values.
Yeah. And it's a daily practice.
The
And I
daily.
think we as women, sometimes, as you were saying at the beginning of the interview, it's that idea of when I get there. And it's always one step ahead, right? It's always, your happiness and your joy is out in front of you. And what we talk about a lot is the daily practice of creating that today and then tomorrow
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
then the next day. And I do this practice every single day. And I
Mhm.
know you do as well. It's not a thing that in my mind I'm thinking, oh, one day I'll get to a point where I don't have to do this work.
Yeah, it's
I know
forever.
it's forever. And I think when you fall in love with the practice, you don't mind showing up for it.
Because it becomes part of what you do. It becomes like brushing your teeth,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
know, you start to realize, or when you start to feel, because we're human and we're all going to feel overwhelmed or cranky or whatever,
Mhm.
we now have the tools to say, wait a second, this is a thought, and my thoughts are creating the way I feel in my actions in my environment, all that kind of stuff. So I can stop this right now by doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I had never even considered that. I just kind of felt like, oh, today's a crummy day.
Right. Oh, me
Um,
too. Like life was always happening to me. It was like
right.
I was at the effect of my life all of the time. I
Right,
didn't realize, and I was a nurse and I realized we have a brain, but I didn't realize I could use it to
right,
create my life. I was constantly reacting, which is why I was overweight and overwhelmed and just over it.
right, exactly, right, and then we become very victim, and that victim energy, I mean, you have also inspired me to become a life coach myself, so I've studied that as well, and what I've learned is, like, that's a real thing, like, that victim energy, you start to kind of when you're in that place, you're not able to get to the next step.
Right.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
And so, that's you want to get to an energy that feels good. And that's really what goes back to what we've been talking about, really making it a thoughtful practice
Mhm.
to make a decision to kind of embody certain things and live your life the way you want to,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
isn't it crazy? Like sometimes I think about the idea that we get to decide who we want to be and embody it.
Yes.
Because I don't know about you, but for years I thought I was just who I was, that I had no choice.
Yes, absolutely, and you have taught me, so I could talk to you for, like, 2 weeks straight on everything that you've taught me, but
And we would laugh a lot.
we would laugh a lot and drink a lot of champagne.
Of course. Of course we would.
know? So, but, that's another thing. A lot of times I'll go into a situation where you feel anxious, like, "Oh, I don't know, like, maybe this is just above me," and I've realized, no, like, that's not what it's about. We're all at the same where it's all an equal playing field here, and I am just as welcome at this party as someone else is. And you know it's not because where I came from and where I'm going, it's I get to choose where I want to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not stuck in a certain situation because that's where I've landed at some point. So
Yeah. It's really powerful.
it
And
is.
that's the one thing that I hope anyone listening to this realizes, that it doesn't matter if you've struggled with your weight forever. It doesn't matter if you've been, bad in relationships. None of that matters. It's the
No.
past.
Yeah.
And you get to decide. You get to
Yes.
look forward and ask yourself, like, who do I want to be? What do I want to create? And then who do I need to become to create it?
That's right. That is the crux of it. It's so easy. Like, I think so many of us spend so much time in the past and we think about, a difficult relationship, or, I didn't have enough money, or I didn't go to school, or I was overweight, or whatever, all that
Mhm.
stuff. And we spend so much time there. Like, there's nothing we can do about that. In every minute, we have the opportunity to bring it a step forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where the gold is.
Yeah. And, I say all of the time, you can't create a new future by hanging out in the past.
No, not
And
at all.
yet
Not,
it's so funny how we want to hang on to it as our identity, even though
that's
it's
right.
painful, right?
Yeah. And it
Which,
becomes a habit. It becomes a very bad habit then.
yeah.
I can't because blah, 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 whatever we're telling ourselves.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so anyone can start at any minute, even if you've just, and we've all been there, like, where it's like, I just, had a bunch of French fries, and it's like, and you know what? And now in this next minute, I could choose to do something else. I don't have to worry about, you always have the opportunity. You don't have to wait to a certain point or for someone to tell you. You can start in any moment.
Right. You don't have to wait to New Year's Day to start again.
No, exactly. Exactly. Right. How many of us, I'll start Monday,
Yes. I'll start tomorrow. That was mine.
Yeah.
Every night it was like, I'll start tomorrow. And the downside to that is that you begin to not trust yourself.
That is such a great point.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
well, I'm really curious to hear from you. What has been the most difficult shift that you've made? The hardest thing to let go of, something that maybe it was a habit or a belief system that you had that you've now overcome, but it was so difficult for you to let go of?
That's such a great, great question. I will say worry.
Mm.
I was a born worry wart. I felt like, I was always a nervous kid, and I always felt like if I worried about it, I don't know what I thought. What I did realize though, I think I thought if I worried about it, I was like steering it in the right direction. But the truth is, like, that is like the biggest waste of good emotion, you know? Um, and then I realized about a year ago, I'm like, you know what? This is just a bad habit, like nothing else. It's a habit. And so to be able to let go of that, because whether or not I worried about something or I didn't, it was still probably going to happen. And I might as well have good thoughts about it and let it unfold. And when I say it was going to happen, like what's going to happen is going to happen, and and I get the choice to react to it the way I want to. So
Right.
I'll react like, let's not worry about it, let it unfold, and then I'll react the way I choose to react to it. Right.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
instead, I would worry about it, and it usually never happened in a bad way anyway. So,
Yeah.
right. And
Yes.
I think realizing also that worry, I knew that it was a choice. Like it started to occur to me that it was a choice. And then I realized for myself, it was just a bad habit.
Yeah. I went through a period, and I was never a worrier, but I went through a period after my divorce
Mhm.
where I was so overwhelmed with worry, I
Mhm.
was paralyzed.
Oh,
And that's the thing with our emotions, right?
yeah.
Our emotions impact how we show up in the world.
Yeah.
And so it was to a point that I was just so inundated with worry. I was just like hiding out in my house. And I realized one day, I'm like, I'm done. And I put myself on a worry free diet. I'm like, for the next 30 days, I am not allowed to worry. Now, of course, the worry still came up.
Right.
But in that moment, I was like, nope. It's just like the cookie. I'm not eating the cookie, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I realized I trained myself out of worrying again.
Yes, exactly.
And
And you can do that with anything.
yeah,
That's the amazing thing, right? Like we
so
think,
true.
this is how I am. I'm a worrier,
Yeah.
right? And no,
That's not an identity that we want to have,
no,
right?
I want to be like the girl who
Terrible.
wears red lipstick. I don't want to be the worrier. How boring.
So true. So true. So, what would you say has been the biggest shift that you have had since being a part of the French Kiss Life community?
Oh, the one biggest shift?
Yeah, just one.
Now I'm gonna start to worry. No, I'm kidding. Um, that I'm gonna say to be present. To be present and really, and it goes back to what you said about leisurely hustling. You make things happen when you're present in the moment and enjoying the moment.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds corny, but enjoying looking for the beauty, because that's my value in every moment. So maybe it's the color of the grass, or the color of the sky, or whatever. You get the choice to really enjoy what's happening right now. And it's not what's happening in a year from now or what happened yesterday. It's making the choice to make the present moment what you want it, and to really just be in it.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that. Just
yeah,
be in
be
it.
in it, because that's where, otherwise, like, one thing that I talk to my clients a lot about is this idea of overwhelm. And you
Mhm.
taught me this. You said overwhelm is a state of mind. So I work with people that are really, overwhelmed, right? And they've got
Yeah.
so much to do and they don't know what to do. And so they expect to work with me and say, okay, let's whip out your calendar and your to-do list and see what we're going to do. We do that kind of stuff. But the first thing we talk about is the idea that it's a state of mind. So yes, you can have a very long list of things to do, but you can only get one thing done now. So let's get present and let's focus on that one thing calmly and cross it off and then get to the next thing. And
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference in the way you show up.
Yeah. It's so true.
It's
It's
so
so,
true.
and we are living in a society now where it feels like everyone is overwhelmed.
Yeah.
This work is so needed because it's just like my worry. Like when you're full of overwhelm and worry and anxiety, you find that you end up sabotaging yourself. You get
You
very little done, and it
get
gives you
very
more,
little time.
yeah, it gives you more evidence of, see, I told you I'm overwhelmed. So
Right.
it's about getting into that state of being first and then looking at what needs to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you show up with, you're much more focused and you have energy and you're getting things done right the first time. You don't have to go back and redo it.
Yeah.
It's just a nice shift, and it's a nice way to show up and really get things done and get through your day. you
Yeah.
know, no matter what. And I do believe that that higher, and this is where it gets a little woo woo, but I think it's then you're really bringing that higher energy, and that's what starts to attract all that great fun stuff.
Yeah. So true. And you're
Yeah.
such a great example of that.
Oh, thank you.
Truly. Truly.
Thank you. But I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. You changed my life. You
Oh,
really,
thank
really.
you. Well, for any woman that's listening to this and they're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, or, we've all been in that place of like, is this it? Is this life? Right? What advice would you give them based on your experience?
Yeah, I would say never underestimate the ping of the dream, right? And so there's something that keeps nagging you that, oh, I really want to do it. I want to travel. I want to lose weight. I want whatever, have a baby or start my own business, whatever.
Yeah.
Never underestimate what if it's coming up, it wants to be recognized, right? And even if it feels like it's a tremendous thing that you don't know how you'll get there, don't worry about all of the steps. Take a baby step and just be consistent every single day. Just
Yes.
one tiny step, and don't give up and just keep going and you'll get there for
Yeah.
sure. But don't ignore that little that voice that's trying to, like the voice that told me to sign up as soon as I got out of yoga. Right?
Yeah. And
So
we often ignore that voice. We're afraid of it. But that voice, my experience has been, and yours as well, it leads you to incredible places.
it does.
And it's scary. It's
I
scary
was
to
just
listen
going
to
to
that
say that you'll
voice.
get there and you'll be like, oh no. But that's the stuff, like that's where again the gold is, right? It's going to
Yeah.
lead to a place where you're going to feel nervous, but that's okay. Jump in. And the great thing is once you jump, you feel like $1 million afterwards, right?
It's so much fun.
Yeah,
It's
it
so
is.
much fun being uncomfortable all of the time, right?
Well, it is like,
Well, it's a great point that you bring up, because a lot of times women will say, I don't know what I want, or they're afraid to dream because they don't believe in their ability to create it. So they stop
Mhm.
dreaming. And I want to encourage everyone, dream and dream
Dream.
big, whatever your big dream is. Your
Yeah.
big dream may be downsizing and living in a little, cabin. And that's okay.
Right. And I think that's a fabulous dream. I really do. I really
Right?
do. Yeah.
Right. But I think it's so important that we as women want what we want without apology. We don't have to explain it. We don't have to justify it.
No,
We just need to like our reasons for wanting it, and we need to give ourselves permission to want it. And that's
absolutely.
hard. It's hard to do.
It is hard because I think as women also we're taught to maybe put all of that stuff, the dreaming stuff on hold so that we can take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no time for dreaming or there's no room for it or money or whatever. But that's really unfair. Like we're selling ourselves short. And, we talk all the time about, well, you want to look back and say at the end of your life and say, well done, darling. And it's the truth. Like, and, that starts, let it start today. And if you're 75 years old, let it start today. Like
Yeah.
it's never too late. It's never too
Never. Never.
The other thing also is if someone would say, well, I don't know what I want. And that happens for a long time. I didn't know either. Play. Just
Mhm.
go towards what, feels like fun.
Yeah.
You'll start to figure it out.
Yeah. I think it starts by asking the right questions.
Yes. Yes,
Being
absolutely.
curious. Being
Yes.
Curiosity has changed my life, and I know it's changed yours too. So
Mhm.
stay
Sure.
curious, ladies, right?
Yes, absolutely. And don't
Awesome.
question it. If something comes up and it seems off the wall, like be curious to see where it leads you to.
Yeah,
It's mystery. It's fun.
it's fun. And we
Yeah.
love having fun, don't we?
Love having fun.
So I love to wrap this up, and I'm really curious what your answer is going to be.
Okay.
What are 3 ways that you French kiss life every day?
Oh, wow. Red lipstick.
Love it.
Um, this is a great, great, great question. Or actually, let's back up a second. It's starting my day with intention every single day. It's waking up and journaling and thinking about what I want my day to look like and feel like. And then it's putting on red lipstick and just showing up the best way that I can. And then the third way I'd say is laughing.
Yeah.
Finding something to laugh about.
And I love your laugh.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
bringing
you.
your wisdom, your beautiful laughter,
Oh, thank
and
you.
just your inspiration to the podcast. I know women are going to really enjoy listening to all that you've shared. So thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I'm so
Thank
honored
you.
to be here. I can't even tell you. Thank you.
Awesome. Mwah.
Mwah.
Cheers.
Love you.
Love you. Hey, before you go, I always like to say French Kiss Life is what we do, and Slim Chic and Savvy is how we do it. If you're